This surveillance footage captures Sasha Samsudean not long after returning home after a night out with her friends in downtown Orlando, Florida. Just hours later, police would find her dead in her bed with no clues as to who had committed her murder. The truth as to what had really happened that night would be far more horrifying than anyone would imagine. It would also serve as a chilling reminder that even with the electronic locks on our doors, night guards, and surveillance cameras, we're never truly safe. So with that comforting thought, let's dive into the terrifying case of Sasha Samsudean. Welcome to Fear Files, where we discuss and dissect the most mysterious, terrifying, and mind-bending cases from all over the world. Before we start, we would like to send our thoughts and prayers to the loved ones of Sasha Samsudean, who fell victim to the abominable acts of this one man. Meet 27-year-old Sasha Samsudean. Sasha grew up in Central Florida and soon after graduating from the University of Florida, found herself a job in Orlando as the social media manager for Pearson, an educational services firm. She was also a regular volunteer with the Apartment Association of Greater Orlando. This is Sasha promoting apartment complexes as part of her volunteer work.
Hi, I'm Sasha with 407 Apartments TV. I'm here at the Edge Orlando Apartments near UCF, so let's go check out what they have to offer. So I'm here with Kyle. Can you tell me what's the most unique thing about your community?
Well, we have our 4-4 that we're going to be looking at today.
If you're not familiar with sunny Orlando, it's the town that spawned the infamous Casey Anthony. It's also home to over a dozen theme parks and nightlife so lively it's earned the city a reputation as the dance floor of Central Florida. It was here that Sasha moved after graduating, working first as a part-timer in the marketing department of Pearson, before quickly moving up the ranks to the position of Director of Operations. A coworker said people often underestimated Sasha because of her looks. She was a highly intelligent and driven young woman. The warm, easy manner you see on camera is also a true reflection of Sasha's character, her friends said. She was warm, bubbly, the life of the party, and full of enthusiasm.
I've attended the past 2 years of Lisa Palooza, and let me tell you, it's a great event. As a supplier, even on this side of the industry, I get to spend an entire day with my clients learning about their side of the business. What could be better than that?
By 2015, Sasha had found herself an apartment worthy of promoting in one of her own videos. Uptown Place on North Orange Avenue had a gym, a pool, landscaped gardens, and state-of-the-art security. Each apartment was fitted with a quick-set digital deadbolt lock, accessible only by code. There were also surveillance cameras, entrance doors that required key fobs, and a night guard. Sasha was thrilled to have her own place and had no hesitations about living alone. After all, if there was anywhere you could rest easy in your bed at night, it was at Uptown Place. Or at least, so she thought. Friday, October 16, 2015 was the last day of the Orlando City soccer season, and every soccer fan in the city was going to be out watching the game. Sasha and her friends decked themselves out in purple in support of the Orlando City Lions and headed out to watch the match. After the Lions won, the group moved into a venue called Sidebar to celebrate, and then to the Attic, a well-known Orlando dance club. Around 12:30 a.m., Sasha told her friend Anthony she was leaving. He didn't know whether she was going home or to another bar, but that was typical of a night out. Friends would come and go, sometimes meeting up later that same evening. And this, he thought, was just like any other night. The next morning, Anthony sat in a cafe where he and Sasha were meant to be having breakfast. Sasha hadn't shown up and was not answering her phone. Figuring she was hungover and sleeping it off, Anthony ate his food and left. Several hours passed with still no word from Sasha. He contacted two of her closest friends, Katie and Megan, who also had not heard from Sasha. Sasha had a baby shower to attend that day, and it was totally out of character for her to be unreachable this long. The three friends decided to swing by her apartment. In the parking garage at Uptown Place, they found Sasha's car. The gift she had bought for the baby shower was still in the back seat. After slipping through the front entrance of the complex, they banged on the door of Sasha's third-floor apartment. No one answered. A sick feeling was now kicking in. The friends rang local hospitals and police stations, thinking that maybe she had been in an accident. No one had seen a girl matching Sasha's description. Anthony called 911. When police arrived at Uptown Place that evening, they were met by the security's on-site security guard, Stephen Duxbury. He was off duty at the time, but knew without asking why they were there, and quickly obtained permission for them to enter Sasha's apartment. With Sasha's friends waiting outside, officers did a quick search inside. Everything was in perfect order. There were no signs of struggle, and no signs of Sasha either. Then one of the officers took a closer look at the master bedroom. The comforter had been rolled up into an odd tube shape, and there was something else too. Something spine-chilling. Locks of long, dark hair were coming from the end of the comforter, and on one side, a limp hand protruded. They had found Sasha Samsudean. Sasha had been violently beaten, raped, and strangled. Later, the medical examiner who had performed her autopsy would report never having seen such a severe neck fracture. Sasha had fought her attacker hard. Her arms and hands were covered with defensive wounds. Just one look at the officers' faces as they came out of the apartment was enough for Sasha's friends to know that she was dead. In the coming days, their grief and anger, and that of the devastated Samsudean family, would only grow stronger with each new revelation.
The suspicious death of a 27-year-old Orlando woman. Sasha Samsudean's body was found Saturday night inside of her apartment at Uptown Place on North Orange Avenue. Right now, police are not releasing many details, but friends and neighbors say they were stunned to hear about it.
Typical girl, just nice, fun-loving girl. She wasn't too boastful, too loud. Just nice, quiet type. She seemed to get along with everybody.
I guess kind of nervous because we don't really know how she was killed or if we should be concerned that there's someone dangerous living in our building.
An analysis of the crime scene revealed no signs of forced entry. It seemed that whoever had killed Sasha was someone she'd unwittingly welcomed into her home. Her purse, phone, and key fob for the building were missing. The apartment smelled strongly of bleach, and an examination of Sasha's body revealed that cleaning products had been poured onto her skin in what they believed was an attempt at destroying DNA evidence. The sheets on her bed also had patches of discoloration where someone had poured the cleaning product. But whoever had tried to cover their tracks had not been as thorough as they thought. The toilet seat had been left up, with 2 thumbprints found on the underside of the lid. Another was found on her nightstand. A condom wrapper had been left on the floor by the bed. Police dusted the hardwood floors throughout the apartment, revealing several size 9 shoe prints. DNA had meanwhile been retrieved from Sasha's chest. 33-year-old Stephen Duxbury had been a security guard at the Uptown Apartments for just over 5 months. Newly married, he was a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and had acquired his security guard license earlier that year. During his interview, he told police that Sasha had arrived at the entrance of Uptown Place around 1:45 a.m. the previous morning with 2 other women, but no ID and no key fob. He chuckled to himself. He was used to these sorts of situations, drunks who had forgotten their fob keys, but the 2 young women were extremely concerned that Sasha should get in safely. He reminded them that he wasn't allowed to let anyone in the building without proof that they were a resident. When a male resident who arrived at the entrance seemed to know Sasha, he turned a blind eye when Sasha had slipped in behind him. He couldn't allow drunks to wander around the building, though. He told police he searched several floors before locating Sasha outside her apartment, trying and failing to put her code into the door's keypad. She asked him to walk with her to her car to see if her fob was inside. Exasperated at having to babysit a drunk, he relented and escorted her to the parking garage. But before they reached her car, she suddenly remembered the code. Once again, though it was wrong, he said he'd do a favor and leave her to keep trying while he did another sweep of the building. If she hadn't gotten it right by the time he was back, they needed to come up with an alternative arrangement. When he returned, she'd gone. He figured she must have worked out the code. But later that morning, she had walked by him in the hall with a man he didn't recognize. Police now focused on corroborating Stevens' account. They needed more information on Sasha's movements that night. Uptown Place was just over a mile from the Attic nightclub, and the streets were full of CCTV cameras. CCTV footage taken from the street outside the Attic nightclub showed Sasha alone and walking unsteadily through the crowd. In footage from the next camera, she had been joined by two women. No one in Sasha's circle recognized the women. Police released the footage and issued a request for the unidentified women to come forward. Within hours, Julia Goff and Haley Messmore had contacted the police and were giving their statements. The young women explained they had noticed Sasha while they were waiting for an Uber. She was stumbling and clearly inebriated, and at some point had been about to get in a car with a group of men. Concerned for her safety, the girls approached her. They quickly realized she had no phone, no purse, and was in no state to get herself home. They invited Sasha to share their Uber with them back to her apartment. It was an act of kindness by two well-meaning strangers. But in light of the monstrous acts that would follow, their actions would come to be seen like something almost heroic. Once outside Uptown Place, the women waited with Sasha as she tried but failed to enter the building. It was then that a security guard approached and refused Sasha entry without proof of residence. But when another tenant arrived home, Sasha slipped through the door behind him. It was the last they saw of Sasha. As for the security guard, he re-entered the building a short time later, and assuming she'd be safe, they left. The women's account matched Stevens. Meanwhile, though, other leads had presented themselves. The savagery of Sasha's attack suggested it was possibly a crime of passion. Police turned their focus onto interviewing any men in Sasha's life with whom she had been romantically involved. Taylor Unsinger had been in a relationship with Sasha for 2 years. During his police interview, he said they still spoke regularly and that he had privately thought they may one day get back together.
Was there any talk about trying to get back together?
We didn't really talk about it, but it was something that I always thought that we would, down the road.
On the night of the murder, he'd been working a bar shift, he said. His parents had been staying with him, and he had come home and gone to bed around 1 a.m. His whereabouts were later corroborated, and he would be eliminated from the investigation when his DNA proved not to be a match of the killers. Taylor's interview had provided other useful information, however. He'd once known the password to Sasha's iPad, and this new information helped the police to gain access to it. Sasha's iPad had been found at her apartment, and it shared data with her iPhone, including her messages. On the night Sasha had been murdered, several messages had been exchanged between Sasha and someone by the name of Ben. At 5:12 a.m., Sasha had sent a text message containing one word, Ben. He'd replied 16 minutes later, but she never responded. It was the last message she'd sent, and the last activity that had taken place, in fact, on any of her devices. A man called Ben Roebuck had already contacted police after hearing of Sasha's murder. Police now called him in for an interview. Ben told police that he and Sasha had known each other since high school and had dated during their college years. They had been good friends ever since, and he'd last seen Sasha the previous Thursday night when they had met at a bar.
And you haven't seen her since Thursday night?
Correct.
Okay. When's the last time you spoke to her?
I received a message from her at 5:12 a.m. on Saturday morning. That was are you talking about on the phone or via text message or anything?
On the phone or text message?
Yeah, text message. The last kind of back and forth we had was around 1 in the morning, but I got a message from her at 5:12 a.m. Just said my name, and then I responded about 16 minutes later, and I never heard back from her after that.
Okay. And that was Saturday morning?
On the night of the murder, they'd messaged several times about potentially meeting at a friend's place. Despite the eerie last message, Ben's account of his movements also checked out, and his DNA was also not a match. He was eliminated from the investigation. By now, the security footage from Uptown Place had been retrieved from an off-site security company, and officers sifted through every minute of it. What they would find would horrify every resident of Uptown Place and cause the case to hit the national headlines. The footage shows Sasha entering Uptown Place at 1:46 a.m. Moments later, an unknown male appears behind her. He can be heard on the video asking her if she's all right, to which she replies with a cheerful yes, thank you. She then heads up the stairs and for the next 20 minutes is out of view of any camera. At 1:48 a.m., Stephen Duxbury re-enters, looking for Sasha. Sasha, meanwhile, can be seen stumbling up another flight of stairs. At 2:06 a.m., she is picked up on a different camera. There is the clanging of Sasha's shoes through the stairwell as she runs up the stairs, apparently to escape Stephen, who she believes is going to throw her off the premises. A few seconds later, he can be seen following stealthily behind her. At 2:25 a.m., she appears again, only this time she's walking with Stephen down the flight of stairs to the first-floor parking garage, and they're chatting amicably. They exit the building before appearing again moments later. At 2:27 a.m., they take the flight of stairs up to the third-floor garage and then reappear again when Sasha apparently remembers the code. This is the last footage taken of Sasha. No footage could be found of Sasha with any mystery man. At 5:05 a.m., Stephen is seen entering the third-floor parking garage, then re-entering at 5:13 a.m. It seemed that the case had reached a dead end, but then officers spotted something odd. At 6:36 a.m., Stephen Duxbury is captured entering the second-floor garage carrying 3 white trash bags. He re-enters the building 2 minutes later before leaving with his shoulder bag and belongings at 6:40 a.m. Police asked the building's property manager if taking out the trash was usually part of a security guard's duties. It wasn't. Stephen had also told officers that his shift ended at 6 a.m. He had mentioned needing to spend a few minutes writing up a daily report, but that was unlikely to take 40 minutes. There's also a 90-minute black hole between 5:14 a.m. and 6:36 a.m., during which Stephen could not be located on a single camera in the building, and there were no key fob swipes recorded. Police obtained a search warrant for Stephen's home and asked him to come in for another interview and polygraph test. Before administering the polygraph examiner asked Stephen if he had ever been arrested. Stephen now mentioned that he had when he was a juvenile. But it was a misunderstanding, a jacked-up case, he said. In the following bizarre account, he explains that he was falsely accused of assault by a girl with serious emotional issues. He'd then been a true hero and pleaded guilty in order to save his best friend and the girl's reputation.
Nah, basically it was just, my best friend's older sister was babysitting my siblings because they wouldn't listen to me. My mother was a single mother raising 4 kids. We lived in a farm, and this is when I lived in Otis, Massachusetts. Kid that lived down the road kept sneaking over to our farm and opening all the doors, letting our animals out in the middle of the night, and we lived on a major highway. I had to take the dogs out to the barn. She came with me to help me because I had a golden retriever and another dog. And while we were out there, I had forgotten to plug in the cord that gave power to the barn in the house, so it was pitch black, and I thought I heard something upstairs. And I thought, oh God, that little shit's upstairs. So, not really thinking, I went over to the wall of tools, and I grabbed the first thing that seemed sense to me, which was a shovel head that had broken off the staff. Mm-hmm. I go up the stairs, and she's following me. She was about a year or 2 older than I was, and, she's kind of a little nervous about what's going on, so I'm like, okay, stay here at the top of the stairs. If anyone tries to run by you, stop them. She's like, okay. So I go walking around, but I can barely see anything. I'm walking, I hear floorboards creak, I see a shadow move out of the corner of my eye, turn around, upside the back of her head. Oh, she had moved and followed me. I didn't know. Okay, that's a simple mistake. Yeah, well, that simple mistake, unfortunately, went right down the worst roads possible. She freaks out, and I find out later that's because she had been raped by her 3 previous boyfriends and her uncle. So she had some severe issues with that. Mm-hmm. Her mother hated my mother because her kids felt more comfortable talking to my mother than her. So she forced Becky to press charges against me. State troopers in the area basically assumed I was trying to rape her or something. And then it just went from there.
Here's the accurate version. Stephen had hit his best friend's older sister over the head with a shovel while she'd been babysitting him and his siblings. When she had come to, she found him choking and kissing her. He'd freaked out and fled. He was later convicted of aggravated assault. Stephen's character starts to take shape the longer he talks. When asked by the polygraph examiner about his medical history, Stephen spoke of a stabbing incident, wisdom teeth removal, an emergency appendectomy, a mystery cramping disorder, kidney stone removal, whooping cough and lung issues, dizzy spells, an anxiety disorder, and migraines. He then rattled off the endless difficulties he'd suffered as a security guard, managing drunks and people determined to break the rules by swimming in the pool out of hours and picking fights. He presents himself as a morally superior but embattled enforcer of law and order, simply doing his best to fulfill the duties despite the many lowlifes attempting to thwart him. The truth, in fact, was that residents had been complaining about Stephen since the moment he'd arrived. The complaints had ranged from harassment to the downright creepy. One female resident complained that Stephen had been acting sketchy and had followed her back to her apartment. These complaints had been submitted to Vital Security as well as to Uptown Place and Condominium Concepts, but no action had been taken. Stephen then took his polygraph. He was asked if he had ever set foot inside Sasha's apartment, if he'd caused her death, or ever removed anything from Sasha's apartment. He answered no to all, and all his answers indicated deception. One question in particular he stumbled on. When asked if he knew how Sasha died, he was offered up a series of possibilities. When it came to was she choked, his answer indicated extreme levels of deception. Police had never released any information to the public about how Sasha had been killed.
You know, based on this, there's something going on here, okay? And so maybe she somehow talked you into coming in. Well, the chart's saying that you did, this is huge. And this is, did you enter her apartment? No, I didn't. All right, well, I mean, the only thing, honestly, the situation is bothering me. I mean, about the whole thing about her. I mean, I'll be straight up. This whole situation has been bothering me. And just thinking about what may have happened is just, well, without even being a polygraph examiner, you were able to show me each question you had issue with. And every single one of them on every single chart was the relevant questions. So that means there's something there. There's something that you're not telling the complete truth about. You have no control over that. That's why this works so well. Now, let me show you another thing. One more thing. What's that say? Significant reactions. Probably this result was produced by a truthful person. 0.003% chance that the result was produced by a truthful person. Damn. 0.003% chance that you were truthful on this test today.
Officers now interviewed Stephen and asked him about the trash bags. He said he'd seen them on the second floor after his shift had ended and thought he would do the cleaners a favor. Here's a glimpse of the extraordinary arrogance and delusional moral superiority that is Stephen Duxbury.
We were tracking her from downtown where she's trying to pick up guys. So she wasn't flirting with me. I mean, other than, leaning against me in the hallway because she could barely stand. But she wasn't flirting with me. She never flirted with you? No. She never asked you to come inside the apartment? No. If she had asked me to come inside the apartment, I would have told her no. But this is the problem, according to what I'm looking at. I know, but I've been asked by other residents in the past, too, to come into their apartments. And I've also told them no. I had one offer me sexual favors, and I declined. The only person who knows that other than me is my supervisor, because we didn't want to embarrass the resident because he was drunk at the time, or possibly just lonely and maybe tipsy, I don't know. I take my job seriously, and when my job says I'm not allowed to go into someone's apartment, I don't go into someone's apartment. Yes, I've been bothered by this since the moment I saw and heard about the situation. It's been bothering me. I've been having a hard time sleeping because of this. I've been terrified of what's going to happen when I go to work tonight because I know I'm going to be having residents asking me questions. I might even have newspaper people trying to corner me. Now, this whole thing is bothering me. And I knew this was going to end up happening because this is not the first time I've had police officers assume I did the worst thing.
Okay. I'm not trying to get you to say anything that didn't happen. I'm just telling you the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? You didn't want to hurt her.
I didn't hurt.
Christine, can we at least agree that you did go inside? Now, you may not have heard her.
I did not go inside of her apartment.
There's a lot of physical evidence.
Even after she invited you in?
She didn't invite me into her apartment. And if we're going to continue on this line of discussion, I think we're done here.
The interview concluded exactly how one would suspect, with an indignant and condescending lecture from Stephen. Police later found that Stephen had scratch marks up and down both arms and one mark that looked like a potential bite mark. He claimed that he had a nervous condition which caused skin irritations. A search of Stephen's apartment uncovered a pair of size 9 Skechers sneakers that matched the shoe print on the floor of Sasha's apartment. 3 days later, the thumbprints under the toilet seat were confirmed to be a match to the right thumb of Stephen Duxbury. The trash bags Stephen could be seen carrying in the surveillance footage were the same as those Sasha used in her apartment. And then the final damning evidence. His DNA was a match for that taken from Sasha's chest. The only real question that remained was how Stephen entered her apartment. This is where things would become even more chilling, if that's possible. An examination of Stephen's phone revealed that from 4:56 a.m. until 5:01 a.m., he'd searched up how to override a quick-set digital lock, the type of lock on Sasha's door. He can be seen entering the third-floor parking garage shortly after this and re-entering at 5:13 a.m. At 5:12 a.m., Sasha had sent her last message to her ex-boyfriend Ben, simply saying his name. She'd never had a chance to write any more. Police believe that Stephen overrode her security lock shortly after 5:13 a.m. and quietly entered Sasha's apartment while she lay in bed. He then sexually assaulted and beat her before strangling her to death. He had attempted to clean the evidence away with bleach before removing what he could in trash bags, which he placed in his car and disposed of later. The discovery that a man who'd been entrusted with protecting the residents of the building was in fact the monster they needed protecting from was horrifying. How had he hidden in plain sight for so long? And was there anything that could have been done to prevent this horrific crime? Sasha's parents blamed Vital Security, the security company that employed Stephen Duxbury. Stephen had a criminal past. Other residents' complaints had been ignored, but the company argued that Duxbury had passed the state-level FBI background check. The family also filed lawsuit against Spectrum Brands, the company which manufactured the quick-set lock on Sasha's door. Criticism over flaws in the lock and the ease with which they could be manipulated had been appearing in news articles since a 2013 article in Wired magazine. Sasha, along with every individual with a quick-set lock, had been dangerously vulnerable to forced entry attack. The company, however, argued that the lock on Sasha's door was most likely faulty, but this could not be proved since it had been discarded. In January 2016, Kwikset redesigned the Smart Key deadbolt.
Orlando police investigators say 33-year-old Stephen Duxbury was arrested around 10:30 this morning at his home in Port Orange. They say Duxbury was a security guard here at the Uptown Place Apartments in downtown Orlando the night 27-year-old Sasha Samsudean arrived home after a night out with friends.
As a security guard, he used his access to prey on someone who was very vulnerable.
Police Chief John Mina and his investigators say Duxbury sexually battered Samsudean and strangled her in her apartment. They say he then wrapped her body in her comforter, using bleach to get rid of any DNA evidence. Investigators say Duxbury didn't realize he left behind some shoe prints on her carpet, and he also left behind fingerprints on her toilet seat, which he left up. Detectives said they hope Duxbury's arrest lets residents here sleep easier tonight.
Stephen Duxbury was arrested in November of 2015. and charged with first-degree murder, sexual battery, and burglary to an occupied dwelling. Orlando Police Chief John Mina called the murder a crime of opportunity by a man working in what should have been the protective service of the residents of Uptown Place apartments. This crime could have happened in any apartment complex in any city in the United States. Following a 7-day trial and just 4 hours of deliberation, Stephen Duxbury was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder of Sasha Samsudean. During their statements, Sasha's parents, Ken and Tara Samsudean, extended their sympathies to Stephen's mother. 2 sets of parents had lost their children, they said. Ken and Tara Samsudean continue to honor their daughter's legacy by working to help other families deal with the grief that comes from being a victim of violent crime. Tara Samsudean said, "It took me 18 months before I could feel any emotion about what happened. And when I started to cry, it was bucketfuls of tears that came." If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.